Hello and welcome to the Real Estate Regroup Show. I am your host, LJ Walker, a real estate investor helping you realize your dreams of owning a home or investing in one. This week, we commemorate the passing of Prince. He actually died April 21st, 2016. He was a musical genius, to say the least. He was also a fashion icon, a big influencer. He was my muse. And yes, he was also my boyfriend in my head. Unfortunately, he died of an overdose a number of years ago. So what I want to do is I want to talk about his real estate ownings and certain things that we can learn from his life as it pertains to what he owned, what he rented, his real estate pursuits. Okay, so I'm not sure if many of you are aware of this, but he actually owned more than one house. Paisley Park was the one that was given the most attention, okay, mainly due to the song and what have you, but he actually owned homes in California, Canada at one time, Spain, and then he owned 7 in Minneapolis. So not just Paisley Park, not just that one. Okay, so let's just clarify that. And they said that in Minneapolis, it was typically about 20 acres that he had altogether, right? So he was a real estate investor. But I want to just also say this. I have family who are musicians, and typically you do have to have some residence either in California or New York or both. Those are like the most essential states, particularly those who are musicians in the United States. The other place would definitely be, or the other places rather, would be Memphis, Tennessee, and now Atlanta, Georgia. Many of the Southern rappers have put Atlanta on the map, okay? But for many years, it was Los Angeles and New York, all right? So I wanted to also, let's talk about him as a tenant before we even go about into his home ownership. There was a time when he did rent a home from a basketball player named Carlos Boozer. I'll be honest with you, I don't know who the hell he is. Okay, I know Prince, but I don't know this Carlos guy. Apparently, Prince paid him $70,000 a month. At first, Carlos was not going to move forward with this, but then eventually when he heard about the money, he obliged Prince. But then he got upset because Prince made certain alterations. I believe he painted the house like in stripes, purple stripes, and then he had particular numbers on his building. So here's the thing. You can sue or evict a person even if they pay their rent on time, but if they make certain alterations that you're not happy with, or do anything else that you're not happy with, like be a disturbance, you can evict or sue people for that. But here's the thing. You got to make these things in the lease. You have to put it in the lease that you don't want alterations to be made. And it doesn't sound like that was in the lease. Needless to say, moving forward, Prince did they came to a settlement, and Prince did take down the alterations and put the house back to the way it was before. Okay, that's another thing. Like sometimes we can look at something and get angry instead of going to the person that upset us and having a peaceful conversation. I'm sure it would have saved a lot of money on both gentlemen if they had come to a conflict resolution earlier, as opposed to just going straight to the court and straight to the media and saying bad things about each other. But actually it was really more Carlos saying bad things about Prince than Prince saying bad things about him. So check that. All right. Now, so that's something that I want you guys to remember, so that those of you who are looking to be landlords, you learn from that lesson. All right. Now, as a homeowner, yes, Paisley Park was almost foreclosed on. All right. And it was saved because 2 weeks prior to going into foreclosure court, Prince did pay up on the mortgage. Here's another thing with musicians. Musicians a lot of times don't get paid like everybody else. Like most people, they get paid once a week or twice a week. Musicians, their pay schedule is not always the same. And then it's not just musicians. There's a number of different entities surrounding the entertainment arena where, like there's one lady that I met, she gets paid once a year. Okay, she doesn't get paid every week or every 2 weeks or every month. She gets paid once a year. She is in entertainment, but she's on the reporting side of entertainment. She owns her own magazine. Okay, it's a successful magazine, a successful media company, but yes, she is not paid the same. And a lot of musicians, again, they're not paid the same. I don't think that that necessarily means he's a bad homeowner. He probably just didn't have the money at that particular time. I know of Prince as being someone who gave to many different charities. The other thing is, a lot of times people get ripped off who are in those particular fields. So it is hard to trust someone. And the other thing you have to remember too with many musicians, and I know this for a fact with Prince, is that he did tour a lot. He put out a lot of albums, sometimes back to back almost. Like, especially back in the 80s, I remember there was constantly a new Prince record, especially after Purple Rain, that movie came out. And even before, he was really quick with it. That's another reason why I would say he's a genius, because there was still a certain level of perfection. Like other musicians, they would take a very long time to put out a new record. And they also were perfectionists as well, but they never could catch up to the quality that Prince had. And even those that did, still their albums were far in between, right? So I just wanted to let that sink in when it comes to that. And you also have to remember, back then, there weren't any computers so since there weren't any computers for a regular person or even a rich person to have, there's no such thing as email. There was no such thing as Zelle. There was no such thing as Avail. There was no such thing as Venmo and Cash App, right? See, today, if you are far away and you need to send money, it comes quickly. It can come in an instant. But back then, it had to be mailed or it had to be hand delivered, right? And mail, a lot of times, to go from one end of the country to the other end of the country took 30 days. All right. Computers, really, as far as like home PCs, they really didn't come out until I would say the 80s or so. And many of the PCs that came out, first they came out with the Army. That's who got them. Then the schools and the libraries, they had computers. And then it was eventually made available for people to have them in their homes. And even then, when it first came out, it was extremely expensive. You know, now you can get a computer at a more reasonable price. So all of these things, you got to consider this. You got to, you got to think about this. No, I'm not just sticking up for him because I was in love with him. I'm being realistic. I'm telling you the truth. If you don't believe me, young people, please talk to your parents and they'll tell you the technology that we have today, we did not have it growing up. Okay? Now, moving along, let's get back to Paisley Park. So, as some of you know, 6 months after Prince died, his family decided to turn Paisley Park into a museum because it was just too much for them to handle. It was in the past being handled by Prince, and now they weren't used to something like this. It wasn't their responsibility, but now it is. So they handed it over to, guess what? Graceland Holdings, and Graceland Holdings manages it. Okay? And I forgot, I know I read somewhere they get about 70,000 visitors a month or so. And I know the tickets range anywhere from $51 to $198 per person. So now you can do the math on that. They're making good money. The family that's left, and the LLCs and the estates, they're doing pretty good right now. All right. The property, the settlement actually was a 6-year battle that just ended last year, August of last year. Okay. The property's Prince was worth $156.4 million. That's a lot. That's a lot. But it's to be expected. All right. There was a $6.4 million in taxes that were due, that was paid, and some of it actually was a penalty. And I understand that. Why? Because they're in court. They probably don't know like who is supposed to pay what, and then it's like, well, we ain't gonna pay anything until the court decides who gets what and who's responsible for what. So, that kind of makes sense. From what I understand, the cash was split between his 2 LLCs, and 3 of the siblings actually were already a part of one of the LLCs. So those 3 did get cash. Here's the thing. He had 1 full sister and 5 half siblings. Unfortunately, during the whole proceedings, I believe at least 2 of them had already died, which, is unfortunate. But here's the thing. Many of his siblings, they're a lot older than him. They're like in their 80s, in their 70s. So, for them, again, it would have been difficult for them to try and manage such a big property that they hadn't been used to managing for all those years. So I think it was a smart, wise decision that they made to turn it over and have another company manage it for them, right? But dig this, okay? The bank that administered the estate, they got $3 million. And that all came from his real estate holdings. On top of that, they're suing the IRS. I didn't know you could even sue the IRS. So that was a big surprise to me. But yes, I'm going to start looking into probate. The reason why probate kind of turned me off is because I know that in some states you can wait like 5 years before you get any money. But I'm gonna have to rethink this right here, because yeah, slow money, but slow money can be good money. All right, so yeah, that's what I wanted to share. I wanted to share what life lessons we can learn by the real estate dealings that he had. And I hope you learned something too. And if there's anything extra that you want to say, you want to share in commemorating Prince, feel free to put that in the comments. Any disrespect will be blocked. I'm just letting you know. Okay, so guys, that's all I have for you right now. Hopefully the information that I shared will help you make smart real estate moves. Feel free to pass this amongst your friends. Remember, each one, reach one, teach one. Bye for now. Until next time, have a good night.